Good morning. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. That is Psalm 118:24. Today is Monday, December 7th. It's known as Pearl Harbor Day for those that have celebrated over the years. I see very little notice of that today. It was a terrible, terrible day, a day that would go down in infamy, but yet a day that we celebrate because there were brave, brave people that day. Well, most of us are guilty of the when God calls, it's going to be like thunder and lightning syndrome. I could say that it's a lie from the pit of hell, but that's giving Satan way too much credit this time. We've created an ecstatic culture that overplays the amazing interventions of God and underplays everyday obedience to God as we walk with Him and talk with Him. Notice that Joseph and Mary were doing what everyone else was doing. They were going to register for the taxing. God put them in the right place in the fullness of time. Let's read Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. Well, how do we apply this? First of all, like Mary and Joseph, we live and work in an everyday world that seems far from miraculous. In fact, it can seem monotonous, I would say boring at times. God puts us in the right place at the right time to touch a life we could never have imagined. And that's God working, not us. Listen to this excerpt from Charles Stanley's book, Standing Strong, about George Mueller. Stanley says, we see examples of the Spirit-enabled resurrection life in the stories of great men of faith who knew God would come through for them. Like George Mueller, a 19th century pastor who founded 117 Christian schools and started many orphanages in England, despite the fact he had no money. He and the matrons of the houses often found themselves without the resources to feed the orphans, but the Lord always provided for their needs in extraordinary ways. For example, on one occasion, Mueller wrote, "Never were we so reduced in funds as today. There was not a single halfpenny in hand between the matrons of the three houses. For none of the houses had we the prospect of being able to take in bread. When I left the brethren and sisters at 1 o'clock after prayer, I told them that we must wait for help and see how the Lord would deliver us this time. I was sure of help, but we were indeed straitened. When I came to Kingsdown, I felt I needed more exercise, being very cold. Wherefore I went not the nearest way home, but round by Clarence Place. About 20 yards from my house, I met a brother who walked back with me, and after a little conversation gave me 10 pounds to be handed over to the brethren, the deacons, towards providing the poor saints with coal, blankets, and warm clothing. Also, 5 pounds for the orphans and 5 pounds for other objects of the Scripture Knowledge Institution. The brother had called twice while I had gone to the orphan houses, and had I now been 1/2 minute later, I should have missed him. But the Lord knew our need and therefore allowed me to meet him." Well, it's God that directs us. It's God who gives us opportunities to bless others. And as we trust Him and walk with Him, obey His word, then He gives us that blessing. It's the everyday things of life that bring the greatest blessings. Today is Monday, December 7th. Love God, love people, love never fails.